Yeah. Subscribe to the channel. Multimillionaire invites her housemaid to the luxury party with the intention of humiliating her. But all the guests were shocked when the maid took the microphone, and Sylvia woke up early as usual, in her luxurious room decorated with works of art, expensive and imported furniture. She got up and put on a silk bat. Walking towards the mirror, she looked at herself with satisfaction, appreciating her own appearance. His matutin routine included a series of beauty treatments and personal care that he consumed hours of his day. While Sylvia was immersed in her narcissistic thoughts, Catalina was already on her way to the mansion, carrying a simple backpack with her cleaning utensils. Catalina, on the other hand, lived in a small, modest apartment on the outskirts of the city. He prepared breakfast for his son Juan and took him to school. When he arrived, he kissed him on the forehead. Juan smiled at his mother and entered the school. Catalina took the bus full of people to work, always punctual despite the difficulties. When she arrived at Sylvia's house, she entered through the back door, as she did every day. The kitchen in the mansion was impeccable, but Catalina knew she had a lot of work ahead while she was preparing the cleaning products. She heard Sylvia's voice resonating around the house. Catalina, come here immediately. Sylvia's voice was authoritarian and impatient. I want you to clean all the windows today and make sure to vacuum the carpets well this time. If Mrs. Sylvia, I will do it right now, replied Catalina, smiling politely, although she was tired and a little nervous. While Catalina was starting her tasks, Sylvia received a call from her rich friend, Marcella. They discussed the preparations for Sylvia's birthday party, which she promised to be a great event. Sylvia was excited, not only for the party itself, but for the opportunity to exhibit its wealth and social status. You will love the Marcella decoration. Hire the best designers of the city, and the buffet. Absolutely divine, said Sylvia with enthusiasm, completely ignoring the presence of Catalina, who was kneeling on the floor, rubbing the floor, cleaning meticulously each surface. His mind, however, was elsewhere. He thought of Juan, how he was going to school, and how he could give him a better life. Catalina had dreams, but her circumstances often seemed an unbreakable obstacle. Even so, she never surrendered. Her determination was a silent force that, in a quick break for lunch, Catalina sat down in the kitchen, eating a simple sandwich that she had brought from home, taking advantage of those moments of calm to reflect on her life. Sometimes she dreamed of singing again, a talent that she had hidden due to the difficulties of life. Sylvia, on the other hand, was busy with superficial preparations, always focused on herself and what others would think of her. You shouldn't be working now, Catalina. The party is approaching, and this house needs to be perfect, said Sylvia when she entered the kitchen and found Catalina sitting. Excuse me, ma'am. I was just finishing my lunch. I'm going back to work, Catalina replied quickly, getting up immediately and saving her sandwich. Sylvia was in the living room, staring at a catalog of extravagant decorations for her birthday party. She was determined to make this event the most luxurious of the year, something that her rich friends would comment on for months. However, Sylvia's mind was more occupied with another idea. Her cleaning maid, in a way that no one would forget, called Catalina to the room with an authoritarian tone. Catalina, come here. I need to talk to you, said Sylvia, without taking the catalog's eye off. Catalina entered the room carefully, drying her hands in the front. She was always ready for another task, but Sylvia's tone made her nervous. She looked at Catalina with a smile that did not reach her eyes, and that made Catalina feel even more uncomfortable. Yes, Mrs. Sylvia, Catalina asked. I am planning my birthday party, and I decided that you and your son are invited. I want you to be present, said Sylvia with a malicious glow in her eyes. Catalina was surprised by the invitation and replied, never had been invited to anything beyond their usual tasks at home. Confident, she looked at Sylvia, trying to understand her intentions. "Lady, I don't know if it would be appropriate. Juan and we don't have the right clothes for a party like this." Sylvia shook her head and smiled, as if she were being generous. "Don't worry about that, Catalina. I'm sure you can fix something. I want you to be there. After all, you were part of my life in a certain way. Isn't that so?" She had no choice but to accept. She knew that rejecting the invitation could cause problems at work, and, in addition, she did not want to disappoint Juan, who would be excited about the idea of going to a party. She returned her attention to the catalog, planning the final details of the party. In the following days, Catalina could not get rid of the strange invitation. She entrusted her concerns to a friend on the bus, who encouraged her to go and take the opportunity. Although still distrusted, Catalina decided that she would do her best so that she and Juan were present and arranged for the occasion. Sylvia, on the other hand, was preparing for the party with even more enthusiasm, anxious to see her plan of humiliation in action. "Mom, are we really going to a party?" Juan asked, excited, while helping Catalina choose her most decent clothes. "Yes, son. Let's do our best to enjoy." The big day came and Sylvia was exultant. The house was decorated opulent, with sparkling lights, exotic flowers, and a buffet table that looked like it was taken out of a palace. The guests began to arrive, each more elegant than the other. Sylvia circulated among them, receiving praises for the decoration and impeccable planning of the party. That although simple, they were clean and well cared for. As soon as they entered, all their gazes turned towards them. Some guests whispered among themselves, surprised to see the cleaner and her son at the party. Sylvia, upon noticing Catalina's arrival, approached with a radiant smile, slightly taking Catalina by the arm and guiding them through the room. "Catalina, good that you came. Come, let me introduce you to my friends." Catalina tried to keep up with the attitude, but she felt out of place. Juan, on the other hand, was dazzled with the party. Sylvia took care of introducing them to everyone, always highlighting the unexpected presence of the cleaner and her son. It was evident that Sylvia's intention was to make Catalina. "This is my little secret, Catalina. She takes care of the whole house with so much dedication," said Sylvia to a group of guests, who laughed in a contained way. Catalina smiled politely, although she felt humiliated. Every comment from Sylvia seemed a blow, and she knew that the true reason for the invitation was being revealed. Juan, noticing the tension of his mother, she squeezed her hand hard, offering her a silent consolation. Catalina mentally thanked her son, promising herself that she would endure anything for him. As the party continued, Sylvia watched Catalina from afar, anxious about the next step in her plan. She knew that the true humiliation was yet to come, and could not wait to see everyone's reaction when that happened. Catalina, on the other hand, was by Juan's side, trying to enjoy the night despite the growing discomfort. The stage was prepared, and everyone's eyes were about to turn back to Catalina, this time in a way that no one could have predicted. Sylvia's party was in full swing. The animated music filled the atmosphere, luxuriously decorated, and the guests laughed and talked while enjoying sophisticated cocktails and gourmet aperitifs. Catalina and Juan remained discreet in a corner, trying not to attract attention. Juan watched everything with open eyes of admiration, while Catalina tried to keep a calm smile. Despite the growing sense of discomfort, Sylvia, however, had other intentions. She watched Catalina and Juan from afar, waiting for the right moment to start her plan. With an elegant gesture, Sylvia caught everyone's attention, lightly hitting a glass of champagne with a spoon of silver. "Attention, everyone! I would like to take a little break at the party for a special moment," said Sylvia, smiling widely as all eyes turned towards her. Catalina felt a chill when she saw Sylvia looking at her directly. She tried to prepare for what would come next, but nothing could have prepared her for the humiliation that Sylvia was about to inflict. My dear cleaning maid Catalina and her son want her here with us tonight. Catalina is more than just a maid. She is practically part of the family. And, as a gesture of gratitude, I would like to ask her to share her special talent with us. Catalina, please come sing for us, announced Sylvia, with a smile that barely hid her malice. The living room was silent. All eyes turned to Catalina, who was paralyzed. Juan looked at his mother with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "Mom, you can sing. I know you can," he whispered Juan, squeezing Catalina's hand. Catalina felt her heart speed up, sing in front of all those people, knowing that Sylvia. It was terrifying, but Juan's encouraging gaze gave him the strength necessary to face the situation. "It's okay. I'm going to sing," Catalina said with a fluttering smile for her son. He slowly got up and walked to the center of the room, where a microphone was already prepared. Sylvia watched with a triumphal glow in her eyes, waiting for Catalina to be embarrassed in front of everyone. Catalina breathed deeply, trying to calm her nerves, closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the songs she used to sing for Juan when he was little. When she opened her eyes again, she was ready. Catalina began to sing, her soft and melodious voice filling the room. At first, the guests seemed only curious, but as the music continued, something changed. The voice of Catalina was incredibly beautiful, captivating and full of emotion. The murmurs ceased, and everyone remained silent, completely absorbed by the performance. Sylvia, who was waiting for laughter and laughter, was in shock, watching in disbelief while the guests, one by one, were let go by the beauty of Catalina's music. At the end of the song, the hall exploded in applause. Catalina opened her eyes, surprised and excited by the reaction. "That was incredible," he exclaimed, one of the guests, approaching Catalina. "You have an incredible talent, miss." Among the present, there was a man of middle age, elegantly dressed, who stood out for his confident posture. He approached Catalina as the commotion decreased. "My name is Alejandro. I am a music producer." "Catalina, your voice is wonderful. I would like to talk to you about an opportunity," Alejandro said, extending his hand towards Catalina. She looked at Alejandro, still a little dazed. He felt a whirlwind of emotions, surprise, gratitude, but also a shadow of distrust. Knowing that all this was only happening because Sylvia wanted to humiliate her. Sylvia, on the other hand, was furious, but she tried to hide her anger with a forced smile. "Of course, Catalina, you deserve this. Come, let's talk to Alejandro." Catalina was taken by Sylvia and Alejandro to a quieter room, where they could talk. Alejandro praised Catalina's voice and talked about how he could help her launch a musical career. Catalina, excited and still surprised by the sudden change in her luck, began to feel a hope that she had not felt for a long time. "I did not know what to say. Thank you, Mr. Alejandro. I never imagined that something like this could happen to me. You have a strange talent, Catalina, and that talent deserves to be seen and heard by everyone," Alejandro replied, smiling. Sylvia, seeing that her plan had failed miserably, tried to recompose herself. She knew that she had to maintain appearances, but inside she was boiling with rage. Catalina, on the other hand, felt a small victory. For the first time in a long time, something good was happening in her life. And all thanks to his own talent, which Sylvia had tried to use against him. As the party continued, Catalina and Juan were treated with a new admiration for the guests. Sylvia's humiliation plan had transformed into a moment of triumph for Catalina, but Sylvia was not willing to leave it like that. She was already planning her next move, determined to regain control and ruin Catalina's life once and for all. "Let's go home, Juan. It's been a long night," Catalina said, taking the hand of her son. "Mom, you were incredible. I'm so proud of you," Juan replied, smiling radiant. As they said goodbye to the guests and headed towards the exit, Catalina felt that a weight. He knew that there were still challenges ahead, especially with Sylvia close, but for now, he had something that no one could take away: his dignity and the love of his son, and perhaps a new opportunity for a better future. The morning after the party was different for Catalina. She woke up with a feeling of lightness and hope. Her phone, usually silent, he was constantly vibrating with messages and calls. Alejandro, the musical producer, had sent several voice messages, anxious to set up a meeting and discuss the details of a contract. Catalina could only believe what was happening. "Mom, what's wrong? Why is your phone sweating so much?" Juan Curioso asked. Catalina replied with an uncertain smile, but hopeful, "I think it's for last night's party. Juan, to the people who like my music, it seems that Mr. Alejandro wants to help me sing for more people." In the days that followed, Catalina met with Alejandro several times. He presented it to other professionals in the music industry, and soon he was rehearsing for his first public presentations. At first, the events were modest, but quickly began to grow in size and importance. Catalina felt in a dream, but she also knew that she had to keep her feet on the ground for Juan. "Mom, are you going to sing again tonight?" John, anxious, asked. "If you love and you go with me, we go together everywhere," she replied, caressing the face of Juan. Catalina's life began to change drastically. The small invitations turned into great events, and his name began to be recognized throughout the city. He managed to move to a better apartment, where Juan had his own room and space to play. Despite the new fame and changes, Catalina kept her humility and gratitude. "I will never forget where we come from, Juan. Everything we do is for our future, but we will always be the same people," Catalina said, trying to instill important values in her son. While Catalina's career flourished, Sylvia's shadow of envy grew. Catalina noticed glances and whispers when she crossed paths with Sylvia on the street or in social events. Sylvia, on the other hand, was boiling with rage, observing the meteoric rise of someone whom she considered inferior. The tension between the two was palpable, and everyone around her could feel that something great was about to happen. Sylvia could not sleep. Every new success of Catalina was a stab in her pride. She walked nervously through the house, unable to understand how her plan of humiliation had become the catapult for the success of Catalina. Sylvia felt a mixture of envy and rage that consumed her every day. "This cannot continue like this. Catalina cannot be victorious. I have to do something, Sylvia." While looking at his reflection in the mirror, Sylvia's anger led her to make a decision. She began to create a plan to sabotage Catalina. The idea of hiring a private detective emerged while she was talking to Marcella, an equally rich and vengeful friend. "Sylvia, you have to be smart. Find something you can use against her. Everyone has a secret," in a conspiracy tone. "You're right, I'm going to discover something that can destroy that fake good woman." Sylvia hired one of the best private detectives in the city and ordered her to investigate every detail of Catalina's life. Meanwhile, she continued to pretend kindness in public, sarcastically praising Catalina's success whenever she had the opportunity. "Catalina, you're amazing. Who would say you had so much hidden talent?" Sylvia said with a false smile. In an event, Catalina, although thanked for the compliments, felt a growing tension in each interaction with Sylvia. Something in the way in which Sylvia observed her and talked gave her chills. Despite that, Catalina continued focused on her career and on providing a better life for Juan. "Mom, why is Mrs. Sylvia always close? Don't you like it?" "Don't worry about that, son. Some people have difficulties accepting the success of others. But that is not going to stop us," Catalina replied, trying to reassure her son. The tension between Sylvia and Catalina was about to explode. Sylvia was preparing to use any information that the detective would find to ruin Catalina's career and life once and for all. The days passed, and the detective hired by Sylvia finally returned with information. He had discovered something that could be used to stain Catalina's image. A dark secret from the past. Sylvia listened carefully while the detective explained. Catalina was accused of theft. She worked as an employee in a rich house and was accused of stealing valuable jewels. The evidence disappeared mysteriously, and the case was never resolved, said the detective, handing over a dossier to Sylvia. This is perfect. I am going to expose this secret and end it, she replied with an evil smile. Sylvia began to plan meticulously the way she would reveal this information. She knew she had to be careful to make sure Catalina could not defend herself, organized a press conference, and prepared all the details to expose Catalina's past in a devastating way. I'm going to destroy her publicly. Everyone will know who she really is, Sylvia murmured while reviewing her plans. The day of the press conference, Sylvia was radiant. She went up to the stage with a triumphal air, ready to reveal the secret that he had discovered. The media were present, anxious to hear what the rich and influential Sylvia had to say. Today I am here to reveal a shocking truth about Catalina, the singer that everyone knows and loves. You deserve to know the truth about her past, started Sylvia with a serious tone in your words. He felt that his heart was sinking. He knew that the past that Sylvia was talking about was a mistake, an unfair accusation that almost destroyed his life. But seeing Sylvia publicly exposed, it was devastating. Mom, what's going on? One asked, worried. They're talking about something that happened a long time ago, son. It was not true, but now everyone will think it was, Catalina said with tears in her eyes. The press conference continued, and Sylvia revealed all the details that the detective had found. She described how Catalina, then young and desperate, was accused of stealing valuable jewels from the house where she worked. The evidence had mysteriously disappeared, and Catalina ended up being released, but the stigma remained. I will not let this destroy us, Juan. We will fight to prove the truth. Catalina, determined to face the storm that Sylvia had unleashed. The media quickly began to question Catalina's integrity, and social networks were filled with negative comments. Catalina felt that everything she had worked for was crumbling. The public revelation of Catalina's past created a new conflict, intensifying the tension and making it clear that the battle between Catalina and Sylvia was far from over. While Sylvia celebrated her temporary victory, Catalina was preparing for the most important fight of her life, cleaning her name and protecting her future and that of her son. She knew that the truth was on her side, but she would have to fight against the public opinion tide that Sylvia had manipulated so skillfully. The press conference of Sylvia had a devastating impact. The charges of theft against Catalina spread rapidly, reaching all corners of the media and social networks. The next morning, Catalina woke up with her phone flooded with messages and missed calls. The first news were all about her alleged criminal past. One asked with eyes full of concern. They're talking about something that happened a long time ago, son, but I promise you that everything will be fine, she replied, trying to keep calm despite the pain she felt. Catalina knew she needed to act quickly. She contacted Alejandro and other colleagues in the music industry, trying to explain the situation and ask for support, but the response she received was discouraging. Many of the contracts and invitations that he had received began to be canceled. Companies did not want to associate with someone with a stained reputation. Alejandro, please, you have to believe me. I did not do anything about it, Catalina implored during a phone call. Catalina, I believe you, but the pressure is very high. People are talking and companies are afraid. We need time to solve this, responded to Alejandro, clearly uncomfortable. Catalina felt the weight of injustice fall on her shoulders. Everything she had worked for was being destroyed by a lie that she had already overcome once. She looked at Juan, who was playing in a corner of the room. Apart from the storm that was forming, Catalina knew she had to fight, not only for her, but for the future of her son. I will not let this break us. Juan, we will find a way to show the truth, Catalina said to herself, determined not to give up. But the crowd of public opinion was against it. The comments on social networks were cruel, and many old followers moved away. Catalina began to feel isolated and desperate. But within her, a flame of determination still burned. Catalina knew she needed to act quickly to clear her name. Decided, she organized an exclusive interview with a respected journalist, hoping to tell her version of the story and gain public support. During the interview, Catalina openly spoke about the charge of theft and how everything was nothing more than a misunderstanding that almost destroyed her life. She was young and vulnerable, but the evidence disappeared because I was innocent. I never stole anything, Catalina said, with tears in her eyes, looking directly at the camera. Despite her sincerity and the support of the journalist, Sylvia was always one step ahead. Shortly after Catalina's interview, Sylvia released new documents and manipulated testimonies, reinforcing the narrative that Catalina was a thief. Public opinion, already divided, began to lean again against Catalina. She is lying. We cannot trust her, said one of the commentators of a TV debate program. Catalina felt the weight of growing desperation. Her followers on social networks began to decrease, and job offers became. The accounts were piling up, and he knew he needed to do something quickly to secure a future for Juan. But each attempt to defend himself seemed useless in the face of the influence and resources of Sylvia. Mom, are we going to be okay? Juan asked, feeling the growing tension at home. Yes, son, we're going to be fine. I promise you I'm not going to give up, Catalina replied, hugging Juan with force. Decided not to let Sylvia win, Catalina began to investigate on her own. She reviewed old documents and contacted people who could remember the incident. Each step found more barriers, but her determination never faltered. Each new discovery seemed insignificant compared to Sylvia's great manipulation machine. I'm going to show my innocence, no matter what it costs, Catalina said to herself, as she spent nights on the watch reviewing old documents. The battle was arduous and seemed endless, but Catalina was not willing to give up. She knew that the truth was on her side and that she needed to find the definitive proof that she could change the situation in her favor. The pressure was immense, but Catalina's resilience showed that she was willing to fight until the end. One afternoon, Catalina decided to seek the help of loyal friends who believed in her innocence. She met them in a small cafeteria, far from the curious looks. Among them were Laura, an old colleague at work, and Ricardo, a lawyer who had always trusted Catalina. I need your help. Sylvia is destroying my life, and the only way to stop this is to find something that reveals who she really is, Catalina said with a tone of urgency. Catalina, we know you are innocent. We are here to help. Where do we start? Laura asked, determined to support her friend. Ricardo was also ready to help, offering his legal knowledge and contacts. Began to draft a plan to investigate Sylvia. Ricardo suggested starting with the financial records and old employees who could have valuable information. With Ricardo's help, Catalina gained access to old documents from Sylvia's company. They discovered inconsistencies in the financial records that suggested illegal activities. The first big clue came from a counterfeit that had been fired under suspicious circumstances. Sylvia paid witnesses to lie about you, Catalina. I found evidence that she bribed several people, including journalists, to spread lies about you, Ricardo revealed, showing documents that confirmed his words. Catalina felt a mixture of anger and relief. He was angry that he was so cruelly manipulated and relieved to finally have something concrete against Sylvia. But he knew he needed more to ensure that Sylvia was publicly unmasked. This is a good start, But we need something bigger, something that really shows the true face of Sylvia, Catalina said with renewed determination. Discovered more evidence of bribery and fraud. Sylvia was not the honest businesswoman she seemed to be. She had manipulated contracts and diverted money to secret accounts abroad. Catalina knew that these discoveries could be the key to her revenge. Laura, I need you to get in touch with some reliable journalists. We have to make sure that this story is spread correctly, Catalina said while checking the documents with Ricardo. Laura began contacting journalists who she knew could trust the truth and integrity of the information. Meanwhile, Ricardo continued to gather additional evidence to strengthen the case against Sylvia. Catalina, we have enough evidence to unmask Sylvia. But we must be careful about how we are going to divulge this. She still has a lot of power and influence, Richard warned. I know, Richard, but we cannot wait any longer. We are going to expose everything in a public event, where everyone can see the truth at once for all, decided Catalina, feeling how the strength of her determination grew. With everything prepared, Catalina felt ready for the great revelation. She knew there was the opportunity to clear her name and guarantee a better future for her and Juan. The plan was in motion, and Sylvia's fall was about to begin. Catalina organized a press conference, assuring that reliable journalists were present. On the day indicated, the room was full of reporters and cameras, all curious to hear what Catalina had to say. With the help of Laura and Ricardo, she climbed to the stage, holding the evidence in her hands. Good afternoon to all. Today I am here to reveal the truth about the accusations that have been made against me and to expose the criminal acts of Sylvia. Catalina began looking directly at the cameras. Catalina presented a complete dossier with documents that proved the bribes paid by Sylvia, the testimonies manipulated, and the financial frauds he had committed. As Catalina presented each test, the room was silent, and the faces of the reporters showed surprise and indignation. Here are the bank records that show the money transfers to secret accounts. These documents prove that Sylvia paid witnesses to lie about me and bribed journalists to spread false news, Catalina claimed, holding the documents up so that everyone could see them. The reporters began to ask questions, and the cameras focused the documents, transmitting the truth to the public. Catalina continued, showing the magnitude of Sylvia's illegal activities and how she had manipulated public opinion to destroy her life. Sylvia built her fortune through lies and corruption. But today, the truth has finally come to light. I'm here to clean my name and make sure justice is done, Catalina concluded, with tears of determination in her eyes. The press will end it, and the reaction was immediate. News spread rapidly, and public opinion began to change. People began to realize the true face of Sylvia, and support for Catalina began to grow again. Catalina knew that the battle was far from ending, but she felt that she had taken a big step to regain her dignity and ensure a better future for her and Juan. Sylvia was furious. Catalina's press wheel had exposed her illegal activities to the world, and now she needed to act quickly to save her reputation, sitting in her luxurious office. Sylvia turned on her cell phone and began recording a video, her face tormented with rage. Good afternoon to all. Today I come here to clarify the lies that were said about me. The accusations made by Catalina are completely false and unfounded. I am a victim of a campaign of disdain, said Sylvia, looking directly at the camera with expression of pure determination. Then she made a pause, trying to keep calm while she continued talking. I have always been an honest and dedicated businessman. All those evidence presented by Catalina are fabricated and manipulated. The truth will come out, and I will prove my innocence, said Sylvia, turning off the camera with a sudden gesture. The video was published immediately on Sylvia's social networks and quickly began to gain views and comments. Many of her followers were confused, not knowing who to believe in. But Sylvia did not stop there. had more cards under her sleeve to continue her campaign against Catalina. In the following days, Catalina began to receive threatening messages. At first, they were only anonymous comments on social networks, but soon they became in direct messages, email, and even phone calls. The threats were varied, but they all had the same tone of hatred and intimidation. "You're going to pay for this, Catalina. You do not know who you are messing with," said one of the anonymous messages. "You messed with the wrong person. Sylvia is powerful and influential." "This will not stay like this," said another message, sent by email. Catalina felt a chill reading the threats, tried to keep calm, but the situation was locked in the house with Juan, fearing for his safety. Ricardo and Laura continued supporting her, but the pressure was immense. "Ricardo, I'm afraid these threats are becoming increasingly serious," Catalina said. "We have to report this to the police. We cannot let Sylvia continue with this persecution." Some messages were particularly cruel, attacking Catalina personally and trying to demoralize her. "You are a pathetic cleaner. You should never have left the place where you came from. You deserve nothing more than the dirt that you clean," he said, a message full of contempt. Catalina agreed and went to the police station to present a complaint. She knew she needed to protect herself and Juan. Meanwhile, Sylvia continued manipulating social networks, using her power and influence to turn public opinion in her favor. "We cannot allow this criminal to continue to deceive everyone. We need to fight for the truth," Sylvia published, feeding the tension and hatred against Catalina. With every day that passed, Catalina felt that the pressure increased. The anonymous threats became more frequent and terrifying. He knew he had to be strong, but the situation was becoming unsustainable. Ricardo's help and Laura's help was essential, but the feeling of being persecuted everywhere was overwhelming. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" One asked with eyes full of fear. "Yes, son, we're going to be fine. I promise you," Catalina responded, trying to hide her own insecurity. Despite the difficult situation, Catalina continued to fight. She knew that the truth was on her side and that she had to stay firm to protect her future and that of Juan. Sylvia's threats only strengthened her determination to expose the true face of the businesswoman and clean her name once and for all. The days that followed the press conference of Sylvia were extremely difficult for Catalina. The anonymous threats, the cancellation of contracts, and the constant pressure were undermining her physical and mental health. Catalina began to feel exhausted and unmotivated. She spent the nights in a cell, worried about the future of Juan and wondering how his life had reached this point. "Why is this happening to me, Laura? I just wanted a better life for me and my son," Catalina said with a weak and desperate voice. "Catalina, you are strong. We are here to help you overcome this. Don't give up," Laura replied, holding Catalina's hand with tenderness. But despite Laura and Ricardo's support, Catalina began to collapse, lost appetite, and began to lose weight visibly. The sleepless nights led to increasingly frequent anxiety crises. Ricardo noticed that the situation was getting worse quickly. "Catalina, you need to see a doctor. You can't go on like this," said Ricardo, worried. "No, Ricardo, I have to keep fighting. I can't stop now," Catalina replied, but his body was no longer cooperating. After a particularly difficult night, Catalina fainted at home. Juan, scared, immediately called Laura and Ricardo. They took her to the hospital, where Catalina was hospitalized due to extreme fatigue and severe symptoms of depression. "Doctor, will she be okay?" Laura, anxious, asked. "Catalina is extremely weakened. The pressure and stress were too much for her. We need to keep her in observation and provide the appropriate treatment for her recovery," explained the doctor. Catalina spent days in the hospital, receiving medical care and psychological support. During that period, she had a lot of time to reflect on everything that was happening. Laura's constant visit and Ricardo was a consolation. But the emotional pain was still intense. Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve all this? Catalina asked with tears rolling down her face. Catalina, this is not your fault. Sylvia is the culprit. She tried to destroy you, but you are stronger than she thinks. Let's get over this together. Catalina's anxiety crises were frequent, and she felt trapped in a cycle of fear and despair. However, with the support of Laura and Ricardo, she began to take small steps towards recovery. One also visited his mother whenever he could, bringing her drawings and small memories that made her smile, even if it was only for a few moments. Mom, I did this for you. It's a flower. I know you like flowers, said Juan, giving him a colorful drawing. Thank you, my love. You are my strength. I will fight to be good for you. Catalina replied, holding the drawing with affection. The hospitalization and treatment began to show results, and Catalina gradually began to regain some strength. She knew that she still had a long battle ahead. But the time in the hospital gave him the clarity he needed to keep fighting. With Laura and Ricardo by his side, he began to plan his return, determined to confront Sylvia and expose the truth. Catalina, when you get out of here, we're going to finish this once and for all. You are not alone, Laura said with determination. If Laura, when she gets out of here, I will fight with all my strength. I will not let Sylvia win. Catalina responded, feeling a new flame of determination light up inside her. Catalina's recovery was not easy, but finally, the day of the altar arrived. Catalina was recovered, ready to face Sylvia and put an end to that hell once and for all. She left the hospital with a new determination, knowing that there was still a battle to be, but feeling stronger and more prepared than ever. Catalina, we are with you. We are going to face this together, Laura said as they walked outside the hospital. Yes, it is time to end this once and for all. Sylvia is going to pay for everything she did, Catalina replied, with a flash of resolution in her eyes. Catalina's return marked the beginning of a new phase in her life. Was determined to clean his name, protect his son, and make sure that Sylvia faced the consequences of her actions. She knew that the only way to end Sylvia's tyranny was to expose her publicly in an event that would not leave any doubt about her actions. She chose a great event where the elite of the city would be present, including many of Sylvia's old rich friends. Catalina gathered all the necessary evidence to incriminate Sylvia, records of anonymous threats, financial documents, incriminating and testimonies of witnesses. The event hall was full, and the atmosphere was luxurious and ostentatious. Sylvia, in a dazzling dress, circulated among the guests, apparently calm and confident. Feeling the weight of the moment, he knew that was his chance to finally do justice. Ricardo, are you ready? Catalina asked with a determined tone. Yes, Catalina, we have everything we need. Let's do it, Ricardo answered, holding a folder full of documents. Catalina walked to the central stage, where there was a microphone prepared for speeches. The host of the event, surprised, gave him space to perceive the seriousness in his eyes. The music decreased, and all eyes turned to Catalina. Good night to all. I know this is a beneficial event, but I need your attention for a moment. What I have to say is of extreme importance, Catalina began. Sylvia, realizing what was about to happen, tried to keep the composition. I knew that Catalina was there to confront her, but I did not know to what extent the tests came. Catalina breathed deeply and began to expose the anonymous threats that she had received. In recent weeks, I have been receiving anonymous threats. At first, I thought they were just cruel people, but soon I discovered that these threats, Catalina said while Ricardo began to distribute copies of the emails and threatening messages to the press present. The journalists began to read the messages, and a murmur of surprise ran through the room. Catalina continued without hesitation. These messages said that she had bothered a rich and influential person who was only a cleaner and who should never have left my place. These threats were humiliating and terrifying, Catalina said, while the images of the messages were projected on a giant screen. Sylvia began to sweat, but maintained her artificial smile, trying to act as if nothing was wrong. Catalina then presented the most devastating evidence. I investigated the origin of these threats and discovered that they were all linked to the same person. Sylvia, you used your power and influence to try to destroy my life. Here are the records of the bank transfers you made to pay witnesses and bribe journalists. And here is the proof that you were responsible for all the anonymous threats I received, Catalina said, raising a bucket full of documents. Ricardo began to distribute these evidence to reporters, who began to take photos and make notes frantically. Sylvia's old rich friends, surprised by the revelations, began to murmur among themselves. That is not true. All this is fabricated. Catalina is lying. Sylvia shouted, desperate, trying to keep control. But it was too late. Catalina had gathered conclusive evidence that Sylvia was responsible for all anonymous threats. The police, who were at the request of Ricardo, began to approach Sylvia. Sylvia, Rodriguez is arrested for bribery, threats, and financial fraud. You have the right to remain silent, one of the police said, while they put Sylvia's wives. The room remained silent. The image of Sylvia being taken by the police was broadcast live by the reporters present. Catalina, now free of the weight of accusations and threats, felt a wave of relief and justice. Thank you all for listening to the truth. I just wanted to clean my name and protect my son. Today justice was done, Catalina said with tears of gratitude in her eyes. The applause began shy, but soon they became an ovation of support for Catalina. She came down from the stage and was hugged by Laura and Ricardo, who were visibly excited. You did it, Catalina. Finally, justice was done, Laura said, holding the hands of Catalina. Yes, we did it together. Now we can start again. Free from all this fear and oppression, Catalina replied, finally feeling at peace. The public confrontation had resolved the conflict. Catalina took revenge on Sylvia, exposed her true nature so that everyone could see her and regain her dignity. Now, she could continue with her head held high, knowing that she had fought and won. The days that followed Sylvia's prison were of great change for Catalina. The media quickly changed their approach to Catalina's history of overcoming, and she began to receive a wave of support from the public. People were moved by her courage and determination against so much adversity. Catalina's musical career, which seemed to have been destroyed by Sylvia's lies, began to flourish again. With the help of Alejandro, the musical producer who discovered it, Catalina began to work on new musical projects. She received invitations to present herself in important events and record an album. In each presentation, the response of the public was overwhelmingly positive. Catalina felt that she was finally reaping the fruits of all her effort and talent. Meanwhile, Sylvia's life was in ruins. She was convicted of bribery, fraud, and the threats she made against Catalina. Her financial empire collapsed, and with him, the life of opulence that Sylvia had built. Her old rich friends abandoned her, and she was alone, paying for the crimes she committed. The rich woman who humiliated her saw everything collapse around her, feeling the weight of the consequences of her actions. Catalina, on the other hand, was finally free. Justice had been done, and she could continue with her head held high. With Sylvia's sentence, Catalina's name was cleared and her place was restored in the heart of the public. Catalina's story became an example of overcoming injustice. She and Juan lived happily, with the support of loyal friends like Laura and Ricardo. Catalina knew that her trip had not been easy, but every challenge had made her stronger. And now, she could finally enjoy the success and happiness she deserved. If you like this story, like it and subscribe to our channel. Your support is fundamental to help us continue with our work. Now another beautiful story appears on your screen. Take the opportunity to get a little emotional. We wish you all the best session.